So I'm back, and today we're going to do a little rant of the week. Not really a rant, but more of just a discussion video. But we call those rants here, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about today is collections. Now everyone's got their own style for their own collection. You know, they have their own things that hits them just right, and they're like, oh, this has to go into the collections. So we all have our own types of collections. I personally, my collection is a strange one because it's like I'll buy a bunch of figures and I'll get into a line or something, and then I'll give up on it. Like I just stop caring after a little while, and then I sell it, and you know, whatever. It's just, for me, it's always been one of those like, ooh, I want this, and then I get it, I play with it for a while, and then I give up on it, and then I sell it. With the exception of like the Beast War, Masterpiece Beast War stuff. So, you know, how are your collections going? What are you collecting? Is there a certain thing? Skullface put out a video about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago now, where he talked about whether or not the figure is worth it. He was talking specifically on the flame toys, but I think you know, that could go to almost just about any type of figure or collection. Is it worth it to you? And that really, for me, that really like kind of hit home, because it's like, you know, I always complain like the Masterpiece figures for the G1 are too expensive, and he's right. They're not too expensive. If that's the collection that you want, that they're priced exactly where they should be. But they're not worth it to me. I just don't feel the worth of the G1 figures in the Masterpiece collection. Now, why would I say something like that? You know, and I've kind of explained this in the past, but I'll say it again. G1 wasn't really the Transformers I grew up with. And I know that's like, you know, a lot of people are like, well, but that's the granddaddy. It's like, it doesn't matter. So I saw a few episodes of G1 growing up as a kid. Not very many. I saw the original movie and The Return of Optimus Prime. That's how I grew up. I was born in about 84-ish. So it's like, you know, by the time I was actually able to start being a human, even a child, and knowing and falling in love with cartoons and stuff like that, Transformers was already off the air. They got reruns. You know, season 5 was actually just a re-CGI or a new version of Optimus Prime, the Power Masters, where he's telling a kid the stories of the original G1 show. And that wasn't until, what, 87? I think. So it's like, you know, I didn't really get, 87 or 88. So I was like 4 when that show was coming out, the rerun. So it's like I didn't get a whole lot of the G1 cartoons. Now, luckily, because of the way they produce toys in the 80s as opposed to the way they produce toys now, you know, it's like if you put the new line, if they would put the whole line out all at once. So here's the 84 Transformers, and they would be there all year long. Which meant that there was a lot more of these toys being produced and available, and then they did reissues of them all the time. So growing up when I did, it did make it a little easier to get my hands on some of the G1 toys, because they're in thrift stores. Not really because they're in the stores. I do remember, I think like once or twice going to the store and picking up a G1 Transformer. One of which was an Action Master, and I refused to get it because Transformers transform. So yeah, G2 came out, and I got some figures from there. That was more prominent to me as a child than G1 was, because I was able to get new figures at that point. I was able, I picked up Snarl, Optimus, Starscream, Hooligan, Eagle Eye, Jazz, and there's a little blue car. I can't remember his name. But yeah, we went to this. We were able to go to the store and actually pick them up. That was G2, so that's early '90s. So I was way behind from what a lot of you guys, a lot of the viewers out there, because I know a lot of friends that are out there. They grew up on Transformers. That's what they watched as a child. I didn't start really watching and paying attention until it was way over. And that's when the Beast Wars came out. So that's why Beast Wars is more important to me than G1, because I got to watch the new episodes as they were new. I got to watch it and live it and know what's going on with these shows. And then it wasn't until I was in my early 20s before I finally was able to buy the G1 cartoons. Because, when they did put it out in sets, like the VHS sets in the 90s and stuff like that, I was not in a place financially, the family wasn't anyway, where I would be able to purchase those. So it wasn't until I was in my early 20s, before the DVDs first came out, that I was able to buy them. And there was actually a bootleg copy of the first set I had that was actually pretty poorly done, but I still bought it and watched it. So it wasn't until like I said, my early 20s before I was able to actually watch the G1 Transformers show. So that's why they don't hold that same appeal to me as the Beast Wars. So when it comes to my collection, it's like, yeah, G1's cool, Beast Wars is better, but because that's the nostalgia factor. I've ordered the G1's vintage Starscream for Walmart, because I did have the Starscream as a kid. It was the G2 one, but still. So it's just like that hits me a little bit closer than, say, the Masterpiece or the Make Toys Starscream. So it's like I don't really care to pay $100 to $200 for a figure when I could spend $40 on a figure and it hits the nostalgia factor a little bit harder for me. So yeah, and I know I've told you guys in the last video that I'm in the process of remodeling. That's why there's no shelves behind me at all at the moment. So what are your collections at? Also, the other thing is, where are you in the collection? My collection, again, focusing primarily on like the Masterpiece Beast Wars from the cartoon. That's still kind of a new toy line. So we'll see where that goes. As far as like the Marvel stuff goes, I haven't really decided. I'm leaning more towards getting the early 90s toys. I know they're not as good as the Marvel Legends, but they're cheaper. But they're also the figures I grew up with. So again, it's going back to that nostalgia factor. I know the Masterpiece Beast Wars aren't the figures I grew up with, but because they're closer to the cartoon, they're the characters I grew up with. But yeah, it's like with the Marvel stuff, it's just like the Marvel Legends. You know, it's like, I don't mind spending $20 a figure. I don't. For a good figure. But my problem is that, like, the line, it's the problem that a lot of people have, and I will forever have, and I've complained about it before. It's like the line of figures is like, for example, I want the Sauron figure, but I want maybe like 2 other figures in that line. I don't want to have to buy the entire set to get Sauron. That, I hate that. It's a really crappy business model that they have. It's like, why don't you release the good figures to go with these Build-A-Figures? I mean, I don't comprehend why that's not something you think about. Like, oh, hey, I want to get, you know, let's do Build-A-Figure Sauron, and let's do all the Savage Lands guys. How about that? You know, how about a new Mr. Sinister? You know, why do we have to get all these crappy figures? You know, I'm not sitting here like, oh man, I really want a Deadpool in his underwear. It's not a thing that I'm interested in. You know, and I also always thought that they should separate the movie lines from the comic lines. You know, do your Thanos Build-A-Figure, but do it with only the movie figures. If you want to do a comic book Thanos, do it only with comic book figures. I don't want to have to buy movie figures to get a comic book Build-A-Figure. But that's me. I don't know about you guys. So it's like, that's why I'm kind of leaning more towards going with the older stuff, because while it might not look better, it fits the nostalgia factor a little bit harder, and it also allows me to collect what I want. But yeah, so it's like my collection's just kind of all over the place, and it always has been, it always will be. I mean, you know, I'll get into something for a while, then I'll just stop and sell it or give it away or something. That's just how I am. The movie line, for example, the what were they? The studio series. Like, I was really into that for a little bit. Then I watched it last night, and it's like, okay, sell it all, because I didn't want it anymore. I didn't want to look at any of the Bay figures anymore. That's how much I didn't like that movie. So, where are your collections at currently? I know I have some friends that are like at that point with their G1 Masterpiece where they're done. There's a few figures left that they might be picking up, but overall they're done. Now that G1's kind of winding down, I know that there's a lot of figures that'll be replacement figures coming out. So are you guys like at that point where you're just waiting for the replacements to come in, or are you done, or are you just started your collection? Where are you guys at in your collection? And what else do you guys collect? You know, what else is fitting your nostalgia factor? Are you going into some Marvel Legends or Star Wars Black Series, you know, what have you? Is there something that else, you know? I'm debating on dabbling into the Monster Arts myself. Get some old school Godzilla nostalgia going on there, which is funny because it's like, you know, I really kind of wanted to get some of the old Godzilla movies, but then it's like, in my mind as a child watching those movies, they were awesome. But as an adult, you know, I watched like Cinemassacre's reviews of the Godzilla films, and it reminded me like how bad those movies really are. So rather than buying the movies, I'm gonna buy the toys and relive the nostalgia of the fun part that I had as a kid, so that I don't watch these horrible movies thinking that they're amazing and then realizing, oh, these kind of suck. So I'm gonna avoid doing that. So I don't know about you guys, but that's just how I'm gonna do it. So yeah, where are you guys at with your collections?